The wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Well, good evening, friends. It is the first weekend in December, and we're back to working on the hopper. We're going to be doing some smaller, more intimate, more fiddly stuff. We're going to be doing the lighting some of the consoles up for the cabin. And to do that, I have to dissect the put together hopper that I showed you last week and take some pictures of what the inside looks like, because I'm interested in where the clearances are and where I'm going to be able to route fiber optics and such. So let's tear into it and see what she looks like. If you'll remember from last week, dear friends, this is where the state the hopper is in. Now what I've got to do is remove this side of the ball and take a good look at what the space around the cockpit or around the cabin is. Here you can see a nice cross section of the ball of the hopper, so you can see where the spaces, negative spaces and positive spaces are. Now you can see I have a lot of leeway coming straight down around this to light this console here, and obviously for the other side and for the bunk is good. There's that pinch point between the spotlight that goes out the back and here it is, you can see my little finger, and the top roof of the cabin. And here you can kind of get an idea. Now I've taken off that airlock piece, and it actually does fill in this corner. So underneath we've got scads and scads of room to have the jacketed fiber optics running. So I just need to take a couple measurements and we'll be good to go. Okay, having determined pretty much a rough estimate of what these lengths need to be, and having detached that, I am just gonna pull that straight out. Wasn't that easy. And I'm probably gonna leave this sandwiched together for much of the weekend, because I can, well, no, I need to take the ceiling off, but I think we'll try to work with it as much as possible in this state. This is kind of the idea. I just threw some fiber optics through some holes here, but let me turn off this top light. You get an idea. That's kind of the idea. We'll see how well it carries out throughout the rest. Okay, it is an abbreviated work day on Saturday because I got some Christmas shopping done, and I had a buddy come over to help me work on or start a grand new project, which I will talk about in a bit. But we're going to start on stringing fiber optics, and I picked this bunk piece because it's flat and it's easy to work with, and it'll be something good to cut my teeth on, as it were, to before I start getting into the more intricate work on the actual consoles. So what I've done is I've taken one of these semi-strands. This is a bundle or a looped up strand, or a bundle of, well, it's a bundle. It's a group of LEDs. This is from the Dorton Arena LED big old jacketed bunch of fiber optics, and I found a drill bit that drills out the appropriate size. So taking advantage of finding a matching drill bit and fiber optics. So I've got all these strung through, and what I'm going to do is put in some. Now you can't use CA with this because it will cause them to get real brittle and crack. So what I'm going to do is put a little spot of the 1 minute epoxy behind there. Like I said, try it out, see how it works. If this is the correct method, then I will carry it through the rest of it. And then I've got, like I said, I've got plenty of leader on the end of it, so I can determine which group of lights the individual fiber optics are going to, whether they're going to be any of the blinking circuits or a white circuit or whatever. So let me mix up some epoxy and see how this works. I've got several things staged here because I'm going to use the 1-minute epoxy, and it's got a very short working time. So if I line things up that I can squeeze epoxy in and let them sit, then we're better off. This is one of the bridge consoles of the piling consoles from the back. This is the back of the bunks. This is the back of the airlock. This is the back of the wall of the bunks. So I am going to do my best to get epoxy into all of these, and then come back when I can show you the results of same. We've got a liberal dosing of epoxy down in around everything, and it's settling in around the bases of these fiber optics, and I'm going to walk away for about an hour and come back to it. Okay, I have an hour, or at least a half an hour's gone by, and these are good and stuck. So what I'm going to do is snip them down, not to their final length, because I want to save a little bit in case I do more painting, but at least a first trimming so that they're easier. These are easier to handle, especially this guy. That's just a lot sticking out. Here you can see, hopefully, with the lengths trimmed down to about, I'd say, 1/8 of an inch. Still not the final resting places, but down to 1/8 of an inch, you can see how they will look in place now. Of course, I'm going to put them over colored bulbs and blinking bulbs, so that's not exactly it, but you get the idea as to how the light travels. It's Sunday morning and my table's a mess, and I'm back to that thing about how to plan the rest of the day and get something good done and get a good stopping point, because I've got a big patient out on the table in the other room that deals where it's in, that I need to have fixed by next weekend, because I have a field trip coming up next weekend that I'll be happy to report on, but I got to get something done. So I don't know how much of these I'm going to get done. I've got the photo etch glued in. I've got the backlit film in the big hole there, and I figured out which fiber optics I'm going to use. I just don't think I'm going to get the fiber optics into these today. What I can get them into is finish up the main bridge or the main cabin consoles. These guys, I can get these guys finished and glued into this, and maybe even that attached down to here today. So I think that's an obtainable goal, and that's what I need to concentrate on. Hi, it's Sunday, slightly afternoon, and I'm back to that place in the weekend where I'm trying to get a thing done to decide how much to get done this week. I've got a couple little projects here on the hopper that I can get to a finished spot, so that's what I'm going to concentrate on. I've got a big project out in the other room that's going to have to deal with next week's report, which is another road trip. Yes, I'm going to be going to a secret location, a location so secret even I don't know where it is yet, but that'll be fun. That's next week. But for this week, I am having more fun with fiber. You know, they say fiber is important in a diet, and the fiber is the utmost importance on this hopper build right now. Okay, here we've got a string of spaghetti, and I need to take this. Now that I've kind of got now that I've got these consoles here glued in, and they're not going to move around, I got to take this string of spaghetti, and I've got to channel it down through the floor. And the goal for today is to get. Well, I got to dig out some holes here, but the goal for today is to get the piloting console down and then get these sidewalls in. That's going to give me a lot of structure for the rest of the work on the cabin. I've got a lot of fine fiddly work. Now, it's weird. The fiber optics on this job have kind of taken two different tacks. This is kind of big, bulky fiber optic. This is the stuff from the Dorton Arena fiber optic strands. And then there is like a secondary bout of fiber optics that will go in here that is a lot thinner and finer fiber optic strands, and that's going to be a lot more delicate work, and that's not going to get done today. I want to get this big beefy stuff done and get the bunks in. Bunks in and bunk walls in. And that's, if I don't stop talking about it, I won't have time to do it. So shut up and go back to work. Okay, these are the chopped out channels for the fibers in the floor. Say that 5 times real fast. Chopped out channels for fiber in the floor. Doo-dah, doo-dah. This is where I let all the fibers run free. I've been using these little heat shrink sleeves just to kind of keep them bunched up and keep them orderly. They're not there for any specific reason. And this is all obviously way too long. But better to have too long and trim it than to not have it, too short and not go where it needs to. So I'm going to take all of these off so that I can fit the fibers through the slots, because I'm going to redistribute these to different light sources so that they're not all shining from the same light. Okay, it took a couple minutes, an activity very much like herding cats, but all of the fibers are now coming out through the floor. So I can glue down the piloting console, and the next step will be to glue in these sidewalls to further cement, see what he did there, to further cement the stability of the affected area. And then we can start playing with how the fibers are going to get to which light source to make which pretty light appear. I am not closing in the other walls of this so that I can still get in here and touch up paint and do all that kind of fun stuff. Here we're doing a little bit of bed keeping. I'm working on the bunks, and there's no bunk. Putting tiny little warm pico-sized surface mount LEDs to indicate overhead bed lamps like you would have in a cot. And I've got some fiber optics right in those 4 places you can see. So, but what I'm going to do now is line the back of this thing with some silver tape to knock out those huge gaps. Even when you put the bed in front of them, those gaps will still show. So I'm going to go ahead and tape off the back of it. Hey, you can see the bunks are nice and lit up, and these are warm white bulbs, which I really think is going to add a nice extra bit of life to all the other cool white bulbs. The idea is that the bottom bunk here is going to be perfectly well made and maintained, and the top bunk is going to be sloppy, and the bed's not going to be made, and it's going to be a mess. So this is the kit bed that comes with the kit, and that's going to be, like I said, that's left alone. I'm going to paint that nice and clean, and there is actually glass, or clear glass, or plastic, not really glass, coverings over that go over top, in front of these. I think I may leave the top one open and probably close in the bottom one. We'll see. I may leave both of them off, but I think we're seeing some different. I'm going to try to maybe put some, personal effects and some, trash, garbage, whatever. I keep saying, I don't mean to. In the corners, and an unmade bed and a disheveled look, but that's the 2 little pico lights stuck to the ceiling. And you can see the fibers, where the fiber optics are going to go. Neat! This is an angle I don't think we've seen enough of. Looking into the beds, the bunks, and around this wall. These walls have now been severely attached and affixed and stapled and taped and nailed and driven gold spikes through everything I could do to get these guys to stick down to the base. And you can see I'm starting to wrap tape around the back of them to kind of close up the seams between panels so that no light escapes between theirs that I don't want to escape. Like I said, this is a model that's got a lot of room backstage. Behind the scenes, there's plenty of room, so no excuse not to do some insulating. But there's the the fiber optics coming down over the top of the bunks and down into the floor and into this mass sketty. I don't know about you, but for some reason, when this thing goes together, and your mileage may vary, I don't know, it could be the fact I'm left-handed, I don't know. This side seems to go together so much easier and better than this side. This side fought me every step of the way, and it's basically symmetrical. But for some reason, getting the wiring and getting the holes drilled and getting everything down fought me tooth and nail. So this side's going in like a champ. Not a problem at all. So you live and you learn. And now you can see the windshield frame is in. That is not glued down. That's simply snapped over top of it to kind of hold these two walls in the correct position while the glue sets up on them. Also to give me an idea of how everything is looking inside as far as what things will be seen and what things won't be seen. But this is a lot of the little fiddly work that is not very sexy to look at, and it looks a lot like what I did last week. But last week was all putting it together and hoping and praying, whereas this week is all taking it apart, gluing it, and sticking it back together. So this is just solidifying. And then we've got all of this mishmash of lights. I'm going to see if I can try to mock up what the lights will look like so that I can close this video out with that. So let's find out. Okay, this is just a rough estimate. I just made up a temporary bulb in a barrel with aluminum tubing, and I just stuffed some random fiber optics in it. I just grabbed some from each bundle, and then we'll see. This might not be easy to do with one hand, but we'll turn this over and see which things ended up getting lit as a result of it. Oh, look. Now see, to me, that's too many lights on the same circuit, so I may want to be more picky and choosy about mixing those up a little bit more. And then there is what else? Oh, these are lit. Okay, those are the ones over the bunk. And if you look in through the front window, you can see that back panel. So these front windows are going to be large enough that you are going to see the lights on the consoles. Maybe not on the front consoles, but you're going to see a good number of them. But that's the concept. That's the theory. That's the there is a better view of that. And I see all of those lights being on the same circuit. I don't like that, so I'll pull one or two of those out and put them on another circuit. But just grabbing some randomly and running them down to these tubes, what I'll do is I'll just come up with an arrangement of let's zoom back out. What I'll probably do is just come up with an arrangement of barrels for LEDs, like here on the ground, on the floor, bottom of the floor, and then I'm going to have a couple of constant on white bulbs for lights that are always going to be on, and some will blink, but that will mix it up a little bit. But I'm going to run like let's just say I'll have a barrel here, and a barrel here, and a barrel here, and I'll just go and pull and stick various fiber optics into one or the other and mix and match them that way. But that's the theory, that's the principle. Look at that. Very nice. Okay, we're getting there. That's, again, like I said, too many of the same type of lights. Once we have 4 or 5 blinking LEDs under here, the blink patterns will go off of sync with each other, and they'll seem to blink more randomly that way. So let's button this up for the weekend. One last shot through the front windows of those bunks back there. I am still in complete, utter awe of those little tiny Pico surface mount LEDs. They do a heck of a lot of work. Okay. Yeah, I just can't stop playing with these lights. Just checking to see how they're working. I put some wrap back on them just to keep them together, make them easier to deal with in the time between now and I actually get back to working on them. plus the time that I'm going to be painting. There you go. The time that I'm going to be painting on some of those consoles. Now the ceiling, it's got the strip light on it, and the battery's just not got enough oomph to light that ceiling ring up completely. So that's why it's coming out very dim. But the red lights here in the airlock are looking good. Yeah, very nice. And so that's going to bring us to the end of another weekend's worth of work on the hopper. It's kind of interesting only working on one project at a time, although I do have another project in the other room. I'm rehabbing an old kit that I wired up 2 or 3 years ago and didn't know all that much about wiring. So I'm going to go through and gut the wiring and redo it with better wire, better insulation, and shrink wrap all the connections, or shrink heat tube all the connections to make them good and secure, because I need it for next weekend. Next weekend is a big weekend for me and for you, hopefully. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. Of course, I'm going to take the video camera with me. I'll be making no models this week, not working on any modeling next weekend. I'm going on a field trip. I'm going to the closest place I know of to 1967, and that's all I'm going to tell you. And you'll enjoy it next week. I'm going to take video, I'm going to take pictures. It's going to be hobnobbing and rubbing elbows. Should be fun. So until then, be good to each other, build some models, have a good time.